Couple of steps to get started. Hi, Jairino, Aliyah, Yvette. Wherever you're joining from, let me know in the chat what city, what country, what town. Actually, I don't know that I'll be able to identify towns that well. And of course, right before the live chat, sure enough, dropped my other mic, and broke it. Thank goodness for a backup. Let me know if you can hear me clearly. I've got, for those of you joining for the first time, I've got my live chat streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and as well on Instagram. And today's live chat should be really interesting. So if you are joining from Instagram, I would highly recommend getting on YouTube. I think that would be the best experience. If you go to my channel on YouTube, Magna Gopal, you will see that I'm live at the moment, so you guys can check that out because I have some screen shares that I want to do to exemplify the topic that we're going to be talking about today, which is all about fitting in. So if you are on Instagram, I highly recommend you go to YouTube, youtube.com/Magna Gopal, and you should see the live there. But in the meantime, I shall say a couple of greetings. Hi, Luca. Hi, J Bat. Yvette from Orlando, Wade from Queens. I've also this month, end of this month rather, July has been a crazy time. So apologies if you are popping into this live and saying, "What the hell? You didn't even promote this." I did set it up, but I didn't promote it as well as I usually do, because this month has been crazy. But I was really excited about today's topic and I did not want to cancel. And there's always something to say and there's always something to learn from all of you as well. So that is the purpose here. Paul Sachin. Greetings to you. For those of you joining for the first time, this is my monthly live chat, still going strong. This is episode number 29. This is something that I have been doing for, obviously, 29 episodes, 29 months at least. This is just a way for me to share some of my experiences, some of the things that come up in my life, whether that is in conversations with friends or conversations with other dancers or with students, topics that I get a chance to address in those conversations, but also that I think would be really useful for all of us to hear, or all of us to at least open the dialogue, either with me in these live chats or alternatively with your friends, or at the very least within yourself. I have, if you don't know me at all, I have been dancing and traveling around the world teaching, dancing salsa for 23 years. I've also done public speaking. I've done a TED Talk on rejection. If you haven't checked that out, make sure you check it out on YouTube. And now I'm also working on empowerment coaching. And this is really just about making sure we all feel our best, and finding the positive lessons, the positive aspects to anything, including challenges that we have to face, and using those to become our better version of ourselves. And that is what the purpose of these live chats is. A couple more hellos. Jose, Danny. All right. Oh, somebody has bee honey badger. I was called a honey badger a couple of times. I don't know if you know this animal. I didn't quite know this animal. And they're like, "Oh, you're a honey badger." I'm like, "No, I want to be a tiger or a lion. I'd rather be a big animal." And they're like, "Do you even know what a honey badger is?" And then I looked it up and I actually remember a honey badger. There was this old movie called The Gods Must Be Crazy, part one and part two. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's hilarious. It's this couple, a British couple or something, that gets some plane malfunction and their plane crashes in Kenya, I think, and they encounter the locals. And there's one scene where there's a honey badger that's just on their tail nonstop. And they're looking at this animal like it's such a small, cute little animal. but it's vicious. And I looked up honey badger on YouTube, and that thing can fight off lions, like a whole pack of lions. So I own that honey badger title now with much more grace. So whoever it is that joined here, be honey badger, welcome, fellow honey badger. All right, so a couple of things before we get started is with these live chats, of course, there is room for engagement. Some of the questions I have received in advance already, so those things I've included into the live chat itself, but you're more than welcome to ask questions, to share your thoughts, to answer the questions that I ask during the live chat as well. As always, it's always a better discussion when there's more voices involved, and I'm always in favor of that. For those of you who are enjoying the live chats, there's a feedback form, magnagopal.com/feedback, where you can submit your feedback. If you have anything private that you want to share, that's a good place to do it. If there are any questions that you want me to explore, that's also a great place to do it. Many of these live chats that I organize, or that I schedule rather, come from those submissions. So if you want your question or your topic to be addressed, I would be more than glad to do that. But you got to let me know in a way that's not so fleeting and disappearing as it is in actual live chat streams. And finally, if you want to support the channel, there is now a new way. Instagram, it's a little bit different, but if you're here on YouTube, Facebook also, you'd have to switch over to YouTube. But on YouTube, you can join the channel. So if you want to support the channel, you can obviously click on the link in the description below, but you can also join the channel as a member and show your support in that way. There are a couple of different tiers for the memberships. Each of them come with some different perks, but there is a basic tier that if you just want to support the channel, I would be more than grateful for that kind of support. So check that out. There's a button that says join on my YouTube channel. You can click on that to see the different tiers and subscribe to whatever suits you best. Okay, so let's get into the topic today. So the question to all of you is, have you ever tried to fit in or felt pressure to fit in to some aspect, some area, some relationship of your life? If you have, let me know when or where or how in the chat, and then I will check into that. And then my second follow-up question to all of you is, do you think that it is worth trying to fit in? Because for a long time, I always thought that, I don't want to fit in. I don't want to fit into this group. But there are some benefits and disadvantages. And today we're going to be talking about that uniqueness of ourselves, celebrating that and exploring those benefits and disadvantages of trying to fit in. And then also the importance of being authentic, pursuing our goals, and building relationships throughout our lives without losing ourselves. So a little bit of background context into this live chat. I was asked about my career in dance, and the question I was asked was your style always so different from the norm? Like, did you just start dancing and you were always really different, and that's what you just continue to do? And when I started, I was just learning. So, of course, I was seeing people dancing, and that's kind of what I was trying to do. And it got me thinking about the pressures that I faced when I first started and that I still face to fit in, like to conform to the norms and standards in dance. So I'm not sure about all of you, if all of you are dancers or not, but if you are dancers, that's another question I have for you. Can you think of a time, or maybe it's not even a specific time, maybe it's a period of time, where you felt compelled to change what you wanted to share or what you wanted to express or how you wanted to express it to the norms and standards of the dance community? Let me know in the chat. Now, for myself, those of you who know me, I'm quite out of the box in many ways in my personal expression, as well as what I think the lead and follow relationship is supposed to be like. And I would say that now I'm more accepted. I'm accepted because I've put in the time. I've done the rounds, I've traveled, I've taught, and so my face and my name has some clout to it. And so whatever I do, maybe people are not quite enthusiastic about it, or maybe they're judgmental about it, but there's no real pressure now to change. Even though I can hear the judgment in the background, there's no like, well, Magna, you shouldn't do that. You should be dancing differently. And I get it. If you're just starting out, it's going to be a lot harder, because when you're starting out and you're trying to explore that personal expression, you're most likely going to be facing a lot of judgment, and most likely getting a lot of direct judgment, right? Like people actually telling you. Because when I first started, I had that too. I first started doing, the little things that I thought I heard in the music, or that I wanted to express. This is how I felt the music. And people were like, oh, you're being silly. Why don't you dance like this? You should look more feminine. You should do all of these things. And I heard those things. Like I said, I've been in the scene for a long time. And so I don't hear them as much because I put in my time and I've done something with it. But it's not that I didn't hear it before. It's not that didn't hear it when I started. And I'm sure if you are just starting out, that especially if you're breaking out of the norm, I'm sure you've heard that judgment too. And maybe it's not direct, maybe it's indirect, maybe it's something that you overhear other people saying, but I'm sure that that exists. And if you have experienced that, I would love to hear, what your experience is. A couple of comments here. Rajesh, hi. I think you're in Mumbai. I'm glad you joined on the YouTube because, again, like I said, I'm about to share my screen. So if you are on Instagram, I highly recommend hopping on YouTube as well, just so you can see the share screen. I spent some time to create a little bit of some diagrams to show exactly what I'm trying to say with today's topic. And Wade said, it's a tricky question. Good thing from one side, but it gets bad when you start to lose your authenticity just to be accepted to a group. Absolutely. So with regards to the dance community, it got me thinking about shapes. And I'm blurry, always blurry. Okay, there we go. Oh, my hair looks super frazzled. I can never get my hair to cooperate. All right, well, that's about as good as it's going to get. It got me thinking about shapes, right? So let's say that the dance community's description of a follower was a diamond, right? Diamond shape. That's not really a diamond, but you get the point. So for those of you, if you're followers, and also this goes to anyone who's watching this as a replay as well, share your thoughts in the comments below, even if this is a replay. What shape are you as a follower? Or do you think most followers are? Like if the dance community has defined followers as diamonds, what do you think most followers are? Are they diamonds or are they something else? For me, I was a circle. And when I started, I was a small circle fitting into a big followers diamond, right? And I had no problem fitting in as a small circle and a big diamond. But as I grew, that's when I had to make a choice. So I'm curious for all of you, how would you fit a bigger circle into a smaller diamond? A couple of ways to do it, but I'm going to share my screen and fingers crossed that it works out. Let's us see. Present. Share screen. I tested it, but you just never know. Okay. Share. All right, let me just move that from the background. Okay. So hopefully everyone can see that. So this is the salsa follower diamond, right? That's me. If you don't know, that's a pretty common face that I have. So when I first started dancing, this is little me. I fit into that diamond, no problem. Okay. But as I started growing, right, I didn't really feel any pressure. There were a lot of people doing things, and I was still a beginner. So I'm still discovering myself, and I didn't feel the restrictions of that diamond shape. But as I started to grow, then of course, now I'm hitting the edges, right? This is where I'm starting to get a little bit more judgment from people in the community. And again, let's say this circle gets bigger. What are the options here? Right? What are the options? What can happen? Well, this can happen. So let's say I'm getting bigger in my expression than what is allowed of me from this circle. And then let's see if this works. Whoops. And this is what happens, right? For that diamond to exist, parts of me basically get eliminated on the edges. And the other option, that's the only way that I would actually be able to fit into it. Now, what I did is that I kind of outgrew that diamond. Okay. Now, outgrowing it does not mean that I left it behind. It's just that I still have those parts, but I'm also being my authentic self and pursuing some of the things that I want to do. So I don't know if that, I hope that visual makes sense. Let me know, especially again, sorry if you are in Instagram, this is the one time that you're going to wish that you were actually logged in on YouTube instead. So that is a challenge, right? When it comes to being a certain personality, having a certain expression, and then having a mold, a standard around you, especially as you are part of a community that is expecting something different from what you are. You know, initially, I had to shave off a lot of my edges so that I could fit into that diamond shape, right? But I was a circle, true and true. And ultimately, once I fit into the diamond, I grew back into a circle and I broke the mold. And then, in terms of shapes, they represent different areas. So I'm going to relate a couple more examples in my personal life with regards to how I relate to these shapes that we are and how they impact our ability to fit in to other shapes or other spaces, right? So shapes represent areas like family, friendships, romantic relationships, your career, etc. And for all of these shapes that you have, that you present, that you bring to the table, there are also boxes, right? There are spaces of different shapes. So I might be that circle, but that space of a salsa follower was something I was entering in, right? So we kind of have this box of life with many shapes that we're presenting to other people, engaging with other people, as well as spaces, empty spaces that we're trying to fill for our career, for our friendships and our relationships. The other thing that shapes do is that they represent our values, our boundaries, our requirements, our responsibilities, our goals, and our aspirations, right? And considering that all of those things are constantly evolving and changing, each shape and each space is constantly growing and evolving as well. So I'm going to take you through another example. Again, if you are on Instagram, just I highly recommend getting over to YouTube. So another place where I felt pressure was in romantic relationships. Before I get into that, regularly, and I'm okay with that. Bad Danny said, I'm an abstract figure. I don't fit regularly, and I'm okay with that. And when I dance, I feel free and as a rare human. And that's beautiful. And so before I continue with that, I want to also express that we're many different shapes. It's not to say that that circular example that I gave as a dancer is my only shape. I have a different shape with different friends. I have a different shape for a career. We're multiple shapes and we're constantly evolving, right? The idea is not to block yourself in or limit yourself, even with your own dialogue, right? Even with your own words to yourself, limiting yourself to one thing and that's who you are, but to actually be open to change and adapting and growing and accepting that there are different parts of you that are going to come out in different areas of your life. But the key is to understand where there's a balance and what are you seeking, and are you growing into something? Are you shaving things off of your edges? What's the scenario? So I love that you shared that, Danny, and that's great. So let me explain another area in my life that I personally felt this need to fit in, but also like I was losing myself. And often that happened in kind of unhealthy romantic relationships. So let's say myself, I am an oval shape. Okay, let me bring this. All right, let's see if we'll do another share screen here. This is fun. If only it was a little bit quicker, but then I would need a moderator to do this. Okay, let me address one question here first. Rajesh said, how do I accept all the parts and still fit in the diamond, or maybe outgrow it? Well, so that is the challenge, right? Is to understand that you being in a space, you're always going to absorb something from it. It's impossible not to. I mean, me as a dancer, as a follower, it's not like, even though I'm breaking lots of the norms and standards of what a follower should look like and how she should dance and what she should be and what her role is in a partner dance with her leader, even though I'll break a lot of those things, I'm still adhering to many of those things. Like, I understand that I am taking cues from a lead, but I'm adding the part of me that says, well, you know what? I want to also add this. And I understand that this is not part of that diamond. And so instead of saying no to myself and shaving off those edges so the diamond exists over me, I am saying, I'm going to add this to that. And so I'm expanding the definition of what a follower is supposed to be and what a follower's responsibilities are and how she or he can express themselves in the dance. Hope that answers your question. All right, so let's go to unhealthy romantic relationships and sharing screen. And I do hope you will. I had to find some quick pictures, so don't make fun of my pictures that I found. All right. So here we go. Next screen. Romantic space. And this is the space that I'm trying to enter. And this is me over here, little bromance person. Okay. So with regards to unhealthy romantic relationships, I felt a pressure to change myself to fit into a particular relationship. So there are people that I've met, and initially the interest is there. There's an attraction, there's some good communication, and that person feels like they have space for me in a romantic way. So that red space here, that's the romantic space that they have, that's empty, that they're looking to fill. And then this oval here is me and what I'm willing to put into a relationship, into a romantic relationship. But though these shapes, oval, circle, are very similar, they're not the same. So this person had a circle and maybe they wanted to have an oval, or maybe they looked at the oval and said, to me, that kind of looks like a circle. I think this would be a good fit, right? So they are, again, same thing. Let me just move this over here and expand it. There we go, right? So this is me. And that's how I fit into their romantic space. So there are, if I shift this to the back, nope, damn it. 1 second. So there are parts of me, as you can see, behind their romantic space. For me to fit into their space perfectly, right? There's these empty spots, but for me to fit into their space perfectly, that means that I got to cut out parts of myself to exist in that space, right? And if this is who I am, this is ultimately not going to work. And this is one of the things that I felt, that I realized, about myself in a couple of relationships like that. Of course, take some time to learn. But in a couple of those relationships, I met the person. They said, "Oh, you're so great. You're so social. It's awesome. It's so fun to be around you." Then here's the attraction, the communication. Okay, let's see where else this can go. And that circular romantic shape that they had for me was restricting. And so eventually, when we got into a romantic relationship, then all of a sudden it was, "Oh, that's so stupid. That's so silly. Why are you doing that? That's annoying." Right? There are all these things about me that from afar, that oval looked like a circle, that they're like, "Yeah, I think I like those things." But in a romantic relationship, it did not work that way. And I had to either change my shape to fit into the romantic circle, which I can't. That's who I am there, right? In that sense, in the romantic sense, or shave off my edges, right? Get rid of those spaces within me that did not belong and were not welcome in a romantic relationship. And what was the result of that? Well, a lot of conflict, a lot of discontent, a lot of resentment because, well, I don't enjoy being told that the thing that I love, one of the things I love about myself is bad and I need to change that. And of course, ultimately, a disconnect, right? And that relationship ended. Now, I'm not going to go into this, but this person could have been a friend, right? Maybe they had um, a oval friendship space, and maybe I had an oval friendship uh, shape, and that would have fit. I don't think that that was a good romantic pursuit, but it could have been a good friendly pursuit. That makes sense. Okay. Then there's also mismatched relationships, where there's like growing shapes that can break the mold of your life box. So again, going back to what I said before, you have various shapes that you present to other people, right? What you're offering, but you also have various shaped spaces where you accept things from other people. So, for example, a mismatched shape would be trying to force a friendly shape into a romantic space. I'm sure we've had that miscommunication, confusion, or just being hopeful about someone that you're interested in that's not interested in you in the same way. And then you're trying to push them into that shape of romance, and it's just not working, right? And the only way for it to work is for that person to get rid of parts of what they want, which is to be friends, right? To just be able to enjoy and be with you in a romantic way. Same thing could go for a job. So let's look at that next space. Okay, let me share my screen again. A star and a trapezium. All right. Share screen. Okay, so this now we're going to go into is a career space. So this is going to be a um, mismanaged shape. Career. Let's look at career. So I have, this is the space for a career in, let's say, my life, right? And this is my career shape. This is who I am as a triangle. That's my career shape. And this is the space that I need to enter. My career as a dance instructor, especially traveling around the world, was a pretty big shape actually, right? It was bigger than this. So let me just move these over and we'll come back to those in a second. Okay. All right, so let's say hopefully this is a little bit bigger than that guy up there. Okay. So entering the career, traveling, dance, teaching, going somewhere every single weekend, I had an idea of what I wanted to bring, right? I had an idea of what I wanted to do. And this was me. Let's open that up. Right, this is me. Now, the career box was bigger though. Okay, now I don't regret any of the decisions I made with dance. I loved every minute of all of my travels. I love that opportunity to see different places and meet different people and try new things. But when you are trying to fill that shape, right, or that career, whatever is demanding so much of you, it keeps growing. The demands on it are huge. And your career space, you yourself could fit here, right? Whether romantic space, your career, you're healthy, that's what you want. You want balance. But because this career shape is so massive, right? Let's say like so, if you actually fill it to everything that it requires of you, okay, you end up taking away from romantic space, the healthy relationships, friendships. You end up taking away from a lot of those things. And that's something that I had to realize and something that I had to come to terms with as well. With my career, um, it was something that demanded a lot of me. I mean, if I wanted to be present, if I wanted to do all of these gigs, like if I wanted to say yes to every event that was coming my way, well, that meant traveling every weekend. And what did that mean? That meant flying out on a Wednesday or Thursday, coming back on a Monday, having 2 days at home to attend to all of my tasks and uh, errands and all the important things in my life, and then leaving again. And so, yeah, that career, I could have kept my career box small and maintained a balance, but I kept reaching to build further. And it did. It affected a lot of areas of my life. By pursuing that and by not having that balance and allowing it to grow the way it did, it only could grow because I didn't restrict what I put into it. And so, yeah, romantic relationships kind of non-existent. How do you maintain a relationship with someone, an intimate relationship with someone, when you're around 2 days a week and you're busy those 2 days, right? How do you maintain friendships with people? How do you stay connected? How do you stay up to date, right? If you allow those boxes, those spaces to expand. So there's that mismanagement of shapes that can pose a problem as well. Um, all right. So then we're talking about some kind of negative aspects, right? Like why you shouldn't fit in. So if your career, let's say, for example, is not dance, right? It's hard sometimes to look at it and say, oh yeah, how could you possibly regret or resent that? And I don't. Like I said, I don't. I love every single thing that I did, every trip I took, every sleepless night. It was all worth it. Okay, all the days of just traveling and not eating and dancing, and barely sleeping. I don't regret any of it. I appreciate all of it. But let's look at a different career. So, what if you had a career that, you're looking at your career with a small triangular box that says, I want to work 40 hours a week. And the career that you enter, sure, maybe looks again like a triangle, right? So, the visual, you're like, yeah, that matches my goal. And then the career box is actually a huge triangle, similar to what I had just displayed. And that box, without you realizing, actually requires more space in your life box. right? That shape. And so it crushes things around it. And the only way for you to maintain that, the only way for you to truly fit into it is to not work 40 hours a week, but to work 100 hours a week, right? So those are the kind of demands that can happen. And again, back to our shapes, they're about boundaries. They're about respect. They're about your values. And they're about that awareness of finding the ability to know what you want, go after what you need to go after. So Lotus Quell said, what about compromise? Would that change your shape? How does compromise fit into this model? I'm glad you asked that, because that is our next display. I'm super glad you asked that. All right, so let me show the next part. So what we've been talking about so far is, oh no, did I just damage something? Oh, no, I think I didn't. Okay. What we've been talking about so far is kind of the disadvantages of trying to fit in, right? Disadvantages in, say, in your self-expression, right? Where you're trying to fit in and you shave off the edges of who you are, or the disadvantages of trying to fit into a romantic relationship where you are almost no longer recognizable, right? There are many relationships that I was in where when friends saw me, they're like, who are you? Like, I don't know Magna to be a quiet, like sitting in the corner and not interacting with other people. And for those of you who know me, you must think that that's really rare and unheard of and not possible. Even for me, I feel that, because it's not who I am. But I had to suppress those other parts of me to be liked by somebody else, right? So that unhealthy mismatch. And career, um, again, those mismatched shapes, like though they look the same, they might be a lot bigger or a lot smaller. But when they're really big, you got to understand, by saying I'm going to take that shape into my box, it needs space, right? And if you don't have the space, you're going to end up taking space from the other areas in your life: romance, friends, family, peace of mind, right? Fitness, health, all of those things. So let me go into the compromise aspect. Share screen again. Thank goodness for backup microphones and multiple monitors. Okay, so here we are. So let's talk about healthy relationships, friendships. Okay. And this is going to be all about compromise. So any relationship, any effective relationship requires compromise, requires adaptation. It's about sharing a responsibility. It's about working together. And a healthy relationship. So let's say, for example, this is me, right? This is what I want, is a healthy relationship. So I want to fit into this box, and this is somebody else's box that I want to connect with. So I've got some sharp edges, right? And these might be my bad habits, my poor traits. Maybe I'm too demanding, right? Or maybe I have like really high expectations and I'm strict about those things. Maybe I have a temper tantrums, right? These are the square points of this box. And a healthy relationship, right, does not invite those other traits. So fitting into a box is not, move this thing. So fitting into a box is not always about, when you shave your edges, it's not about you're losing something and you're less of a person, right? You could be losing edges to become a better person. So to have this healthy relationship, you can see these corners on this diagram don't exist in this healthy relationship box. And that is okay, right? So that's kind of where the compromise element comes in, is understanding that there are There's always compromise and adaptation required for any relationship to grow effectively and be mutually beneficial. And sometimes you have to shave off some of those points to highlight and develop the better parts of you, right? Like, I mean, let's take an extreme example. Criminals, right? People who were imprisoned, who spent years and years in prison, who now need to be rehabilitated into society. Well, many of the things that they did in prison or how they resolve conflict might not work in everyday society. So to fit in, they will have to change parts of themselves. But are those parts actually worth changing? Is it a benefit? Is it a growth for them? Right? So there is a change, there's a shaving of the edges, there's a becoming a little bit less to become a better and bigger you. And that result, when you do make those compromises, when you do make those adjustments and adapt, you have an authentic, mutually beneficial relationship that's full of appreciation and support, that invites you to be you and develop the better qualities of you. Lotus Quell, I hope that answered your question and showed it in a diagram. Is there a difference between compromise and adjustments, like to fit in? So, compromising would be, I think, an adjustment lines into the compromise. It's like the compromise involves this is something somebody wants, this is what I want. They don't quite meet. So, let's say there's three things here that this person wants, there's three things that I want. They don't really line up. But let's see where, okay, you know what? I'll take this one off my list if you could take that one off your list so that we can find balance, so we can feel like we're interacting on an equal level. That for me would be compromise. The adjustments are what you make and how you adapt to be able to create that compromise, right? So you really don't want to feel like you're sacrificing, and the sacrifice is where that box is overflowing and damaging other parts of your life box, right? Where you're sacrificing your a healthy romantic relationship, or you're sacrificing time with your family, or you're sacrificing building strong connections with your friends for the sake of that career, for example. Hope that answers your question, Rajesh. All right. And then I want to also outline one more. And I hope this one makes sense. I tried to, again, I did my best with my diagrams. All right, so let me show this second last screen. And this is all about expanding into a shape, right? This is about seeing opportunities and saying, that's not me. That's never been me. I've never done that. But can I grow into that space? Can I become a better version of myself by growing into that space? So, this is another kind of positive aspect of trying to fit in. Right? So, let me share my screen again. And all right. cheesy photos, right? So, yeah. Sorry about that, folks. Okay. So, this is the shape of Toastmasters. Okay. I'm going to say, and I should have actually relabeled this kind of communication, personal communication. Personal communication style. Style. Okay, let's just call it that, communication style. Okay. Otherwise, it's going to be shifting everything around. So, this is me. Okay. And those of you who don't know, I am a member of Toastmasters. I'm the president of my club for the second year. I'm also the area director for my area, managing 5 clubs. Now, my entire career with dance did not involve managing anyone but myself, right? I am a solopreneur. I've just had to attend to my own things. I don't have to coordinate with anyone else to make sure things are done. There's no team that I have to organize and schedule regular meetings with. I don't have to negotiate or navigate any conflict in that sense, right? It was just me. I only had to manage myself to achieve my goals. But as club president and area director, managing 5 clubs with their own presidents and officers and members, that meant managing and communicating and connecting with multiple people to achieve a goal. And I had to change the way I communicate. So this communication style is me. And this is the Toastmasters, right? So let's say this is obviously a bigger space. And if I just went in as a square, right? And I don't want to do it because it's going to completely replace the image. So let's just visualize this here. You can see that I'm smaller than this box, right? And this would be, do I want to fit in? Do I want to actually be able to become something bigger and better? Do I see value in this growth? And by shifting into this space, that's what happened, right? So I am bigger. You can see a little bit more of me here, right, than just my hands. And right here, I'm cut off. But here, I've actually become more. I've become bigger. I've developed into more of who I am by shifting into this box and being, I hope you guys can't hear that ice cream truck, by being willing to adapt and adjust who I am, what I'm willing to do, looking at the things that I'm capable of, and seeing this as an opportunity for growth. All right, so let me just stop that share. And so, what did that involve? That involved changing the way I communicate, mainly. All of a sudden, going from just talking to friends, sharing things, and talking to organizers to negotiate. Now, all of a sudden, I have to get people, I have to lead people, I have to motivate others, I have to resolve conflict, I have to provide solutions and communicate differently with everybody. I had to change the way I communicated. What worked for me for 20 years would not be successful, would not lead to success in achieving communal goals in the role of club president or area director. So I had to adapt. And that is a shape that I shifted into, that I grew into. I expanded into that shape to become a better version of myself, right? And what did I get? Lots of personal growth, great connections, and relationships I would have never imagined I would have. So let me just answer a couple comments here. Nimesh said, is comparing from others' achievements is good or not for us? Sometimes it feels like, why am I not like that, etc. That is an excellent question. Comparisons. I believe I talked about this in a previous live chat. I cannot recall exactly which one, but there's nothing wrong with comparisons. It depends on what you're comparing. Because if you're comparing yourself to another individual and saying, I wished I could be like that person, that is a comparison that is destined to lead to disappointment and self-defeating beliefs and just self-defeating talk, because you're never going to be someone else. You're always going to be you. And you cannot be better or the same at being another person than that person themselves. But if you are looking at what they have achieved, that's another level of comparison that you want to put into context, right? If we look at, let's say, for example, you're an instructor and you've been teaching for 5 years and you have not traveled, you're not being invited to travel, and you have another instructor that who's been teaching for 2 years, who has been traveling all over the place. So now you're not comparing yourself to that person individually, but you are comparing yourself to their achievements and saying, man, I put in 5 years of work. How come that person is all of a sudden all over the place? Well, there needs to be more context. You need to be able to present that visual, whatever you're viewing, whatever you're striving for, whatever you're comparing yourself to, you need to be able to put that into context in terms of, well, what are this person's resources? Right? You might be doing it all on your own. You might be doing a ground up effort. This person might have other connections. Maybe they've got a network beyond their local community of friends who can hook them up with an organizer. Maybe they have resources, financial resources, which allows them to travel and pay their own way to get an opportunity to teach somewhere that is not willing to pay for them, right? So if you don't put things into context, that comparison could be really defeating. And then the other element of comparison is, could you achieve whatever it is that that person's able to do? Let's remove achievements of traveling or getting bookings or anything like that. But let's say it's being able to do splits, okay, or being able to do 100 push-ups, like wanting to be, like identifying, oh, I see that person in a higher light because of what they can do. So I'm going to stop comparing myself to that individual and wanting to be them. I'm going to look at the things that I like about what they do and see if I can do them myself. Well, 100 push-ups, if that's what I really wish to do, what are the steps I can take to get there and do that? I mean, comparisons are okay. They're fine. They're going to happen no matter what, because we are human and we see and we hear things and we have a tendency to reflect. And so naturally, we're going to be like, oh, well, that person has this. I don't have that. That person does this. I don't do that. I've been doing all of this work and I still don't have that, right? The comparison is going to exist. But always trying to put it into context will make a huge difference in how you feel about yourself in that moment, how self-defeating you might feel, and also what actions you will actually take, where you can find your motivation to move forward and push forward and say, okay, I am not going to compare myself to this whole individual. I'm going to find one thing that I like about what that person is doing and see if I can implement that into my life and take the necessary steps to do that. Hope that helps, Nimesh. So, kind of to wrap up here, fitting in. Ultimately, what is it about? It is about maintaining a sense of self, right? Not losing yourself in the process. And there are kind of three broad categories that I would say are absolutely essential if you want to preserve your authenticity and connect with the world beyond you. First is awareness and clarity, right? Like, who are you? Clarity. What is it that you are looking for and trying to achieve? Seeking out good mentors, good friends, good relationships, good teachers. Understanding the value of finding the right fit, and understanding also the kind of the shapes that you have available within your box of life, and accepting that some might have to be limited. You might have to take a different career. You might have to pursue a different career to not damage your relationships with your friends, your family, and your loved ones, right? Your romantic relationship. You might have to choose a different career, even though that triangle, you see a triangle far in the distance and you're like, I want that triangle. Well, that triangle's too big to fit in that box without doing damage to other things. So you have to understand the value of finding that fit. And then going back to the idea of these shapes and the spaces are the boundaries, are your values, are your aspirations, are your requirements and responsibilities, and trying to approach things from that view, trying to clarify what are all of those things? What are your values? What are your boundaries? What are your restrictions? What are your responsibilities? What are your goals and aspirations? And then building your boxes and your shapes accordingly. The second element is acceptance and courage. Okay. There's one thing to say, I am who I am, I accept myself for who I am. The courage is where you are willing to step out into the world as you are, and the resilience, right? That fear to confront the world, which is kind of judging, right? We all are in our own way. We see things, we say, I don't really like that. Why? Nobody asked, right? But we still feel it. We still, that's who we are, right? Again, that's back to our shapes. Like, oh, I think a triangle is beautiful and that's a circle. I don't think that that's beautiful, right? It's easy to jump into those things, but to express ourselves authentically, we have to have that courage to say, I'm still going to be a triangle, regardless of a sea of circles around me. That does not mean that a triangle and a circle can't fit. Most of these shapes overlap, right? So I can fit into a larger circle, right? I can shave off edges to fit into a slightly smaller circle, right? So you can still connect with other people, but if you really want to maintain you, you've got to have courage to tackle the judgment that is bound to come your way, and the resilience to deal with it and move forward. I mean, dance, like I said, there was a lot of pushback. There still is, but just not to my face as much nowadays. But there was a lot of pushback to what I do, how I approach being a follower, how feminine I am on the dance floor. Lots of pushback. That's not how a follower is supposed to be. That's not what a female dancer is supposed to look like. Right? And if I didn't do any of that, if I didn't have that courage to stand my ground, well, where would we be today? I don't know that I'd be having this live chat and getting a chance to engage with any of you. In fact, none of you would know me, and I probably wouldn't know you either. Right? And then finally, in terms of preserving that authentic communication and expression, is adaptation and communication. Right? So understanding that compromise is not a bad thing, and change even is not just about you, right? Because we are connected with all these people around us. So change is not an individual journey. It's going to impact our relationship with everyone and everything. And so if you can communicate clearly and openly, it'll be easier for you to find that kind of common ground with other people without like destroying your own core values or without losing yourself in the process. And that's a tricky one, but really important. And so finally, I just want to conclude for this. Let me get rid of, I'm going to actually show my screen one more time, just so you have an understanding of kind of like all of the things that we have, because I was showing kind of one space, one shape. So here's my last slide for today. And you can see that. All right. So more or less, this is, these were the shapes that we discussed today. All right, me and my goofy faces. All right, as a dancer, trying to fit into that diamond shape of what a follower is supposed to be. Romantic space, feeling like I had to lose parts of myself to fit into the circle. Career, where yes, it was the shape of a career, but it was a much bigger demand on my time and my energy and my efforts and my relationships than expected. And of course, that space was very big, much bigger than I thought it would be. And as you can see, it pretty much overlapped and took over from some other areas of my life. The healthy relationships aspect of it, which is the compromise, right? Who you are, you got to be willing to adapt. You've got to be willing to see that not all of the things you do are great things, right? All of us have some really annoying negative traits sometimes, and some people might be okay with them, and other people in healthier relationships with better communication might not. And so there's pruning, right, of our kind of negative traits, things that we could develop. And of course, then this last one, which I use Toastmasters as an example, is um, this is who I am, this is my communication as I've known it. And then this was a bigger role to fill, and it was a different shape. I could have looked for, I mean, I was in a career, right, where this communication style was sufficient. This over here, can't see. Yes, you can kind of see. Right, this communication style was sufficient for everything that I needed to do for 2 decades. But in this new role as an area director and a club president, this communication style was not. And I could either decide, nope, don't want that role, not going to change who I am, or I can grow into it and become that shape, still maintaining my essence, but also becoming a better version of myself. So, how shapes fit into boxes? Shave off the edges to make them fit. You can grow into the shape, and you can break the mold. Dance broke the mold. Growing into the shape, that's all of this Toastmasters journey. Shaving off edges to fit in a healthy way was with my healthy relationships. Becoming a better person by getting rid of some of these qualities that don't have a place in a healthy relationship. But also, negatively, losing who I was, losing a sense of myself just to feel loved, to feel wanted, to feel like I belonged. Right? And you have to be careful when adapting to a shape or trying to get someone to adapt to yours, because sometimes you could get rid of so much that there's nothing left of the original that's recognizable. And I definitely existed like that in many moments in my life, right? Um, and ultimately, if you embrace your uniqueness, you can achieve some really incredible things. Not to, to discount what Nimesh said, but if I was not embracing my uniqueness, I would not have had the career that I've had. I would not be doing all of the things that I'm doing today. These are a result of embracing my uniqueness, accepting the norms, meeting them where it made sense, but never losing my sense of self or values to be a part of it. Right? Not to say, again, Nimesh, don't read into this incorrectly, but not to say that just because you embrace your uniqueness, you're going to accomplish the same things I am. That's not the point. But at least you will have a sense of fulfillment in your life that you did what you wanted to do and you didn't lose yourself in the process. Right? Um, and then one other thing that I wanted to say is that no two shapes are ever the same. So this one's kind of like a really important last point to keep in mind. No two shapes out there anywhere, right? You have a square, each square, maybe there's like a edge missing, or maybe the square is not completely perfectly um, perfectly straight lined edges. Maybe it's a little curve or wavy or something. There's no shapes that are alike. So every shape that you're every space that you're trying to fit into, there's not going to be a perfect fit. It'll be close, but it'll never be perfect. And that means that we need to be able to look at the shapes and see, what are we trimming to fit into this, or what are we adding to fit into this, and is it healthy? And ultimately, the same uniqueness that you have, that you want celebrated and that you want people to appreciate and support, you gotta do the same for others, right? It was very easy. It's very easy, right, to build a career, to have a certain clout because you were unique, and then to look at everyone else and start saying, "Oh, I don't know why that person's doing that. That looks dumb." Instead of saying, "That's where I started." Right? Many of the things that I did when I first started dancing were silly, right? And were not finished. They were not the finished product. I did not completely understand my technique or my body to execute something in a clean, precise, and kind of a aesthetic way. Now I can, right? But there are many people out there that are doing similar things to what I did 20 years ago, trying something new, and they haven't figured it out yet either. So instead of looking at those people and saying, you know what, that looks like garbage and, you know, you should just stop, think about what's possible. What could they do if you instead supported them? So ultimately, fitting in, is it worth it? It depends. It depends. How well do you know yourself? Like what you want to become, what you want to express, what you want in your life, who you want in your life. How willing are you to adapt? How resilient are you in the face of judgment? How courageous are you to stand up for who you are? And can you discern, right? Can you discern the moments where you should adapt and where you should hold your ground? So that is today's topic. I honestly thought that that would go much quicker. It never does it? But for those of you that are here, if you got a chance to join on YouTube and actually see the shared screens, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it helped to visualize some of the things that I'm saying about fitting in and the shapes that we are and the spaces that we're trying to fit into. If you can, please take a moment to complete the feedback form, magnagopal.com/feedback. And if you want to support the channel, if you're on YouTube, you can hit join. There's some tiered memberships there. You could just support the channel itself, and I would very much appreciate that. You can also buy me a coffee in the link below. But simplest way, no cost, is hit subscribe, hit like. Oh, and how did I forget? Podcast, 10th episode of my audio podcast, Empowered with Magna. That is available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Play, all over the place. It's very new, you know, and I'm very excited about it. I'm trying to make these long sessions, create bite-sized empowerment tips and moments to share with you so that you can kind of consume it on a quicker basis than spending an hour and a half with me. I think we're at 35 followers right now. So if you can, please go on Spotify and hit follow and subscribe. Let's try and get me to 50. The more appreciation I can, I guess, see for the content that I'm putting out there, the easier it is for me to go through a sleepless night and create it for all of you. So feedback form, if you want, join the channel, Spotify, the podcast, hit subscribe, share it with your friends, and you can comment on Spotify actually, and I can see your comments, which is pretty amazing. And of course, the easiest way to support this channel and anything that I'm doing is just hit like, leave a comment, share it with your friends, and let me know if there's anything else that you want me to discuss in a future session. Because these live chats, yes, they are me talking, but they're really ultimately about all of you. I just want to do my best to take the information, take the knowledge, take the challenges that I've gone through, take the lessons that I've learned, and share that with all of you so that you can not have to go through as much of the struggle as I had to. That makes sense. So with that, I wish you all a lovely rest of your Wednesday, wherever that may be. I believe Sahiba's in here from India, so I think your Wednesday's finished. I don't know, maybe. Emmanuel Pena said, I learned as a kid through Tetris that the more you fit in, the more you disappear. Whoa, wow. Emmanuel, that was fire. I'm going to repeat that. Manuel said, I learned as a kid through Tetris that the more you fit in, the more you disappear. If you haven't played Tetris, you might not understand this analogy, but that is quite on point. And if all you're doing is trying to fit in, you'll fit in and you'll just blend into the rest, and then those lines of you just gone. So here's to embracing your individuality, your unique expression, your authenticity, I hope I can give you as much courage and power and support behind your back to do all the things you want to do. Who cares how you look? Who cares if you think it's silly? Try not to compare yourself to the the other people around you or their achievements. We're not the same. We don't have the same resources. Even if you put all of the same amount of time we have, we are all at different starting points, and it's really important to keep that in mind. And ultimately, just try to discover yourself first and foremost. What is of value to you? What's important? What are your boundaries? What do you want to contribute to society, to a friendship, to a relationship, to your family, etc.? And then pursue those things and be mindful of the shapes that you're allowing into the spaces in your life, and how you are showing up as a shape into the spaces in this world and in other people's life. And try not to lose yourself in the process, because I promise you, I would rather have a bunch of different people with different ideas and quirks and craziness than a, a sea of uniformed robots. Okay. And if you're here and you appreciate what I do, understand that I'm here because I stood my ground. I adapted when I needed to, but I've always tried to maintain a sense of self throughout my life, in all my relationships, in all my engagements. And so if you appreciate it, one step to getting here is to appreciate that uniqueness within you too. And as Hillary just said, let your light shine. Okay. All right, everyone, have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you for joining me. Hope you enjoyed the little slideshow. Sorry if it was a little hiccupy. I tried to make it as simple as possible, but still as clear as possible to visualize what I was trying to say. Otherwise, you would be like, shape? What? Triangle? Diamond? What's she talking about? Have a good one, everyone. Ciao. Bye, Instagram. Bye, YouTube. Bye, Facebook. Oh, it's the challenge of leaving the screen, right? Weird. Okay.